I would like to call the February 10th, 2025 regular meeting of the Wappinger Town Board to order. May the clerk please call the roll.
Councilman Beal.
Here.
Councilwoman Bettina.
Here.
Councilman Phillips. Here. Councilman Casella. Supervisor Cavazzini.
Here. Please join us in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. I believe, Councilwoman Bettina, you have something that you would like to say for Black History Month?
Yeah, I do. Just want all our neighbors and constituents that I'd like to say that Black History Month for 225 is an honor. The theme, Black History 225, is African American and labor. President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month in 1976 when he called for public to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. So let's take a moment and all remember the great things that have been done. Also, the other thing is it's International Day of Women and Girls in Science. It's celebrated on February 11th each year. It is a day to recognize the contributions of women and girls to science, technology, engineering, and math, better known as STEM. The day also aims to inspire young people to pursue careers in STEMs. This is very important for our future. The other thing is it's National Margarita Day on February 22nd. So partake and be careful.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you, Councilwoman. With that, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Phillips, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Do I have a motion to acknowledge the minutes of January 27, 2025?
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Phillips, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Do I have a motion to open the public portion of our meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Phillips, second by Councilman Beal. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Folks, if you'd like to speak on anything on the agenda, we encourage you to come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes. Okay.
Seeing none, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Bettina, second by Councilman Phillips to close the public portion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Folks, we have 2 discussion items before us here tonight. More so for public communication, transparency, as well as an open dialogue amongst the town board. The town of Wappinger has been, since 1991, a member of the Tri-Municipal Sewer Commission. That commission oversees the operations of the Tri-Municipal Wastewater Sewage Plant in the town of Poughkeepsie and accepts sewage and wastewater from the town of Wappinger, village of Wappingers Falls, and the town of Poughkeepsie. We had briefly covered this in our workshop meeting last week. We, although 51% capacity as a user in that plant, have no voting say or voting power on this commission. This does not allow the town of Wappinger to vote to accept various properties into the district or even deny or have a say on capital projects. This has been going on yet again since 1991. We have had no voice on this commission. When I was first elected last year, I attended a number of the Tri-Municipal Sewer Commission meetings, and we were able to negotiate on February 8th to the commission to allow us to at least start the conversation, to have us be a voting member on the Tri-Municipal Sewer Commission, something that I had notified the board that day because we were so excited that since 1991 the board had finally voted to move in that direction, that commission, to potentially give the town of Wappinger a seat. Throughout this year, we have been working, I know our town engineer, Larry Paggi, as well as our town attorney, Mike Ligori, have been very engaged with the commission, but they are now moving forward with a substantial project, which I, as supervisor of this town, have severe and great reservations over. That project estimated to be $54 million, which we would be responsible for approximately 51% of that project. The project stems from the town of Poughkeepsie, again, one of the users there, needing additional capacity. That is really where this is coming from. That is the driving force. Tri-Municipal is not accepting new applicants and new properties all across the 3 municipalities. But right now, we're facing a significant cost, a significant concern with the commission potentially putting on us a $54 million project to handle additional capacity. I have stated at meetings with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, as well as the federal EPA, that we have no interest in this. The town of Wappinger, if anything, wants to focus on solving our I&I issues, which we covered at the last meeting, inflow and infiltration concerns, rather than addressing additional capacity. Is, quite frankly, we need to sustain what we have here in this town and look out for those who live here, not special interests and developers. So my concern here, and I want to bring it up to the board here tonight, is right now, since we have no voting say, we are subject and would have to, by the commission's vote, be responsible for 51% of that cost, as it stands right now. If we are a voting member of the commission, we then have a say, and we can be a little more vocal when it comes to this. I've asked our consultants as well to be fully briefed on the situation, as well as reviewing all of the agreements that have been done, the worst agreements ever drafted. That's what I said to our attorney when he was reviewing them. But I wanted to yield over to council and to the engineer on their thoughts as well on the situation. Larry? No.
So you are accurate in that the commission has authorized their engineer to prepare a preliminary design for improvements to the plant to accommodate additional flow. The plant has been subject to some violations for discharges that exceed the limits, their speedies limits, both in the allowable contaminants that they discharge, but also in flow. You correctly indicate that some of those flow increases are a result of inflow and infiltration, which is an ongoing nemesis for all the municipalities. And the price tag for that proposal was $53 or $54 million. A grant application was made, and at the first go around with it, that I don't believe that application was successful. So there's been some ongoing discussions with the DEC relative to how the Tri-Municipal Sewer Commission will move forward, and how they will how they'll address these additional requests for a connection to their plant, because all of the municipalities during their dry weather flows are at much less than their contracted allotment for flow. So theoretically, there is capacity to allow additional connections for those who are within the district, but because of the violations, no additional connections are at this time being allowed until some things get resolved. So it sounds like it's going to be a real combined effort of both trying to honor the contractual obligations of the commission to its constituents, but also making sure that the technical aspects of the plant's operations are in compliance with, the required speedies, the DEC regulations. So there's some challenges. There's some real challenges there. Mike, I don't know if you want to speak about.
Yeah, there's a few things that I could speak to. I circulated a memo to try to encapsulate the history of the development with Tri-Muni from 1991 until today. So there are 4 agreements that are actually 5, a memo of understanding that was executed back in 1989, but I don't have that, but I don't think that's relevant today. The 1991 agreement was the first agreement that was executed between the parties. It's okay. It's not relevant. What landed in the 91 agreement is really what's critical. That's where we start, right? It was 1991. The town was seeking 1 million gallons a day for flow if they had connected to Tri-Muni, and that was for what was considered Town of Wappinger Phase 1, Phase 2. So a particular geographical area that would be served at a particular connection point. And that laid out the basis for our tenancy in this as a tenant user of the plant. And between 1991 and then 1999, there were 4 documents. So the first document after 91, which detailed the expansion of the plant that would be necessary in order to accommodate the 1 million gallons, and what the town of Wappinger's responsibilities would be in connection therewith, that's all laid out in the first agreement. And that basically says, look, we're operating at 1.4 million gallons without you. We've constructed this plan. If you want to connect, you have to contribute to our existing capital improvements. You have to make all the improvements, do all the engineering, get the financing necessary to upgrade this plant so it could handle town of Wappinger. And ultimately, by 1995, the town had secured permanent financing or long-term financing with Environmental Facilities Corporation, approximately $8.5 million, to construct the improvements that we see out there today. And then in 1999, the last agreement details the 1 million gallons to the 1.375 million. That details the addition of the 0.375. And it's basically the same agreement that was enacted in 1991. And that agreement details, the town would have to be responsible for the cost of approvals and construction, get the financing. And, from there on out, it appears that it, did all of what was necessary to do to achieve that goal. Ultimately, the max gallons per day that the plant can operate at is 4.5 million. From 1999, there's an allocation of all of the millions of gallons per day. So in effect, you have approximately 2.5 million gallons in play, and then some reserve for the village of Wappinger Falls, the town of Poughkeepsie, and for us. So the base agreement provides for the town to have 2 seats on the commission, but because we're a tenant, they're not voting seats. They're contributing members, but you don't have a vote. And I guess the conceptual discussion or the discussion you guys need to have relate to this very practical matter that's before you, which is that you're part of this sewer plant. You're one of the major users of this sewer plant, and you're sort of along for the ride, for whatever goes on, at this plant. And there were 2 points where you could exit. The first one was in 1991, and that was prior to any construction. In effect, no harm, no foul. You just decide to, you don't want to go forward. There's a termination part there. And then there was a second part, which is not a full termination, just an agreement to not go forward on the 0.375 million or the 375,000 gallon point. And you could agree not to go forward with that particular project. But the only way out of this agreement is by agreement. So there's no way out. You're in this.
Yeah.
So the question for you guys is, do we want to have a say, or, do you kind of stand back and
Do we continue what we've been doing since 1991?
Right, and from a a contractual perspective, if all things were equal and not to say that they're not, I don't think there's anything that's identified as inequitable in the agreements. I think the reality is that so much time has gone on, and the cost to deal with things has become so exorbitantly expensive, and regulations have changed that the impacts are felt differently. So I think that's the discussion for the board, is really, kind of digging in, getting an understanding of are these changes necessary? Are you guys bearing a burden that's greater than your proportionate interest? You're being charged proportionately of the cost. The question is are we the reason for
this new capital project?
Yeah,
For
right.
its cost.
Right, for that new cost. So I think that's actually where the discussion should be.
Exactly.
Because I think it makes sense. I'm not here for you to lobby to be on the board or not be on the board. I think, common sense will prevail. You'll figure out whether you want to do that. I think you guys having a real educated understanding of why this $54 million project, how much of that is necessary, is there, that's the part that I think.
And for us right now, this is a very unique situation because, again, on February 8th of last year, that commission voted to start the process of moving forward with us being even on the commission, which for those of us who have been involved for years and even prior to that, that politically this has been a very contentious situation where, again, our former town attorney was handed that agreement that you read the first time and was told, you're going to have to sit there and basically listen to it. The town of Wappinger was in no point able to negotiate or counter or really do anything over the course of this agreement. So now the fact that things have changed and that the commission is willing and open to having these discussions with us is huge, because that was not something that was even considered 2 years ago. Again, to your point, this project appears to be moving full steam ahead on their end, and for us to have a say and be able to say, look, one way or the other, we have extreme reservations about this, and for our say to be taken seriously, I feel that we should be on the commission and be able to say, look, again, this is not our problem that you're looking to solve. We have our own infrastructure that we're looking to deal with, but again, we should not, the people of the town of Wappinger should not be made to bear the burden of this cost.
So it's a double-edged sword, right? So on one hand, if we had a seat at the table, we could tell the town of Poughkeepsie, you want the expansion? You fund it. Have fun with it.
Yep.
Because we have 2 seats on a majority, we could deadlock a vote, right? On the board. So that, it's for the town of Poughkeepsie. I mean, I spent many meetings there, and we know that. I was there during the presentation of what they wanted to do. So that's one. 2, you could get better oversight because it's run down for a reason.
Yeah.
The plant is where it's at for a reason, right? And I was just wondering if you had said to them, because in a perfect world, we got the funding, we're going to build our own plant. I wonder how eager the town of Poughkeepsie would be to go forward with expanding the plant. And/or the other thing is that I always bring up, the village wants us in because they think we'll conjoin on any bonds coming out because we're well set to bond. And I found out we don't have to conjoin. We can go get our own funding. So town of Poughkeepsie and the village of Wappingers don't think you're riding on our credit rating. Because if we're forced to do this, we'll get the money. I want to see you get the money. And that's something for them to always remember. They're in bad straits, and they need us a lot more than we need them. All that being said is, we're not going to build a sewer plant. The most likely place would be Carmworth, and that would make you have heart failure.
Yeah, no,
That's-
we're looking at other spots.
I mean, that's really the most likely place, though, in the town. I mean, what kind of buy-in fee they want, because I know if I was in their shoes, I'd be writing a price tag to let you back in.
And
You know what I'm saying? It's just, that's nature.
And again, that has not come up a buy-in fee or anything like that, because the town of Wappinger, over the course of this agreement, we have always paid our debts and
Yes, we
paid them
have.
in full and participated in everything over the course of this agreement. And I do believe right now that the village is in a point to negotiate and have conversations with us about a number of things, and that this would be a good option for us. Again, if we continue this current scenario, we will basically be told, you are paying for this. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Our name is already on the DEC permit, correct? Mr. Pudge, they're listing us.
Not yet.
Okay, but
Not
they're
yet.
listing us.
The new permit coming out, the DEC has indicated that they
It
would
will
like
be.
to see all three municipalities listed as co-permittees.
Exactly. So that's my concern is, again, we're already on that path.
I know.
And right now, again, all I'm looking for here, and I believe what we're looking for here is at least to continue to move forward with this investigation, consent of the town board, get a pulse of the town board. If there happens to be some outrageous buy-in fee, obviously, we're not going to do that. That would also be subject to ratification by the town board. But again, this is moving forward with something that prior administrations have only dreamed about, having this opportunity to at least have a voting say.
Yeah, just, you guys are not in a
buy-in fee,
scenario
no.
that requires a buy-in fee. So in the two agreements, the 91 agreement and the 99 agreement, those were scenarios where the town was seeking to have first the initial 1 million gallons per day of capacity, and the buy-in was really it was a capital contribution or reimbursement. There's a daisy chain provision in the contract, so let's say a fourth municipality were to come in and it paid a buy-in, it was required to have a capital contribution. Each of you has a capital account, so to speak, and you would get reimbursed some of that money because, if you created infrastructure and now someone else is using that infrastructure, you should be reimbursed your proportionate amount. That's in the agreement. So the initial agreement, they're equitable. It's just that, now we're in this situation where I think, again, everyone having a very good understanding of what that $54 million does, right? Why is that charge there? Exactly why? Is it because someone else needs capacity? Is it because we all have I&I and the plants need to make improvements? Is it because of a regulation change? Really understanding whether it's equitable or inequitable, or where it is equitable and where it may not be inequitable. That's a real key component. But conceptually, you're looking at the difference between just being told what to do and having a seat at the table. I think you're probably going to, vote for having a seat at the table.
Larry, just from a pure engineering point, so the outflow into the Hudson makes 2 right angles. Now, just from life, you realize on flow, a right angle reduces your flow by X.
Yeah, the
2
purpose-
right angles will reduce it further. How did they ever allow that?
I'm sure there was a design for diffusing the flow and different things, but
Right.
they've recognized that their outfall is one of the issues with
Yeah, I
capacity.
know.
I mean, I think to kind of put it in things that we can touch as far as what this really makes sense of. Tri-Muni is dealing with high wet weather flows. Town of Wappinger has 1.375 contracted flow. Several times, I think 2 or 3 times during our history with them, and it was most recently during some real significant
Hurricane Irene,
some
significant
real
weather
crazy events. We had hourly flows, not like long, but hourly flows of 4 million gallons per day. That doesn't mean we discharge 4 million gallons an hour. It just means that at that rate, it would have been 4 million gallons a day. So we had some significant I&I.
But 3 times since 1991.
Right. And this is what's getting Tri-Muni in trouble. And it's not just us. Village of Wappingers, I think, has 1 million gallons, and I think they had 2 million, additional 2 million in I&I. And they just replaced all their sewers. So, you know, the I&I issue is a problem. You know, if the DEC would allow the plant to be constructed to accommodate the town of Wappinger's I&I, if that was the way to solve our I&I plant, was to design it to treat it, then there might be some justification to say, you know what, this might not be a bad thing. But the DEC is not going to allow that. The DEC doesn't want it to be a combined sewer. They want you to stop the I&I from getting there, stop the rainwater from getting there. So if that's going to be the case, why should we spend 22 of that $53 million making the plant bigger? We should spend that $22 million on stopping the I&I. We can do it one of 2 ways.
Right.
And that's what I had said on our video call with the DEC and the EPA when we had that meeting with them. Why are we going to address more capacity when the issue's still here?
Right, exactly, because we're going to be
And that's
required
not
to
fair to
address
the
it
town of
regardless.
But we don't have a say. That's
Yeah, well, exactly.
and
That's exactly my point.
We don't have a say.
That's
So,
why we're
again,
here today.
I've had this discussion probably 5,000 times from this dais. This is the proverbial taxation without representation. That's what this is. And why is this? Because the residents of the town of Wappinger voted for this. Let's not forget, this was a referendum, okay, that was set forth by a misguided political approach.
Yes.
Where misinformation and disinformation was disseminated to the town by a candidate for public office and got the residents to vote to get us out of Tri-Muni. And here we are 40 years later, and we have no say.
Yep.
So there's a lot of angles to this. I agree with everything that everyone is saying. However, I will say this. There is a sewer district that has boundaries.
Yes.
That's reflected in the town of Wappinger, that's reflected wholly in the village of Wappingers Falls, and in a portion of the town of Poughkeepsie. So if there is a project, which I believe is the case, that wants to develop in the town of Poughkeepsie portion of this sewer district, I would argue there may be an obligation for this sewer commission to facilitate that project. So it's not as simple as saying, we're against that project, and we want to have a seat at the table so we can say no. Because legally, there may be an obligation where they have to facilitate this project. We've had this discussion before. So that said, the priority, which I agree with the consensus here, should be to address the I&I issue, which we've talked about here for a number of years, right? Get this facility into a status where it's now meeting the standards of the DEC, right? However, we don't have a say. Yeah. So certainly I support whatever it takes to get us a say, but a couple years ago I asked the question and couldn't get the answer. How much is it going to cost
It was
us?
a lot of money.
And I heard millions and millions, okay? And if that's the case, and I understand what you're saying where there's no liquid obligation, but if there's a capital obligation where we're going to spend millions and millions of dollars to get a seat at the table, we're going to have to really put some thought into that and see where the public benefit is versus where the impact is, right? So that's my position. And again, you know, it does become deja vu at some point, rightfully so, though, right?
Absolutely.
And how we move forward on this is really dependent on what the mechanisms are for us to legally have that voice. And then if we do go through that process and we have 2 seats at the table, do we still have the ability to even determine or navigate the direction of that existing board, right? Do we have that majority? I don't think we do. So that's the other side of this.
It'd be 2-2.
Right. It'll be 2, 1, and 1, right?
No, we don't know about that again.
But I'm just saying,
The political climate is very different
right, we
now
don't,
than it was.
you know, okay, you know, I know someone that's on there that would probably have a reasonable approach to what we're saying, right? So I get that. But again, what is the risk versus reward, right? We need to look at that. So my position is yes, we should certainly again, investigate what it would take for us to actually have a voice as sitting members of this board, since we have over 50% of the interest in this operation. But at the same time, we also need to look at the bigger picture. Okay, what's it going to cost us, number one? And if we do have those seats on the board, is the situation still going to have to move forward? That's the other side of it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Larry, one of the surge tanks is offline, the one that's got the trees growing in the middle of it. Would that alleviate any of our I&I problems if it was hooked up for us? It won't mitigate it, I get that. But on those days when you're pushing 2 million
It
gallons,
might put a couple fingers in some of the poles in the dam.
that's all? Okay.
That's it?
Yeah,
That would be my take on it,
it would help a little bit.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean,
council,
We talked about that. Mike Tremper and I talked about trying to control, I mean, we probably would end up constructing new tanks to do it that way. And again, I don't know that the DEC would even approve something like that, because they don't want us to deal with I&I at the end of the system. They want us to deal with it at the beginning of the system where it's occurring. So that would mean going after the older systems to find out where we're getting the water from.
You would think, though, just, you say you mitigate 50% of the I&I, which would be incredible, right?
Right.
Having the surge tank there operating on those, because you're going to get stormwater.
Oh, it's going to help. It's definitely going to
You think just it
help.
would take the surge out of the day and allow the plant not to be overwhelmed?
Yeah. Stormwater comes at such a rate as opposed to sewage flow.
Right.
I mean, I did an analysis about this one time for a subdivision we were representing years ago, and I did a graph and to show the stormwater flows versus the actual sanitary flows. And with the largest graph that I could physically do for a presentation, you couldn't even see the sanitary flows on the same scale as the
Wow.
storm
Yeah.
flows. So it's a challenge.
Yeah.
okay. Council, would you recommend a floor vote or potentially a resolution to conceptually move forward and authorize myself and professional team to continue to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend it. We couldn't do it without the consent of the town board.
Absolutely.
So.
Move.
you good.
Second. Okay, moved by Councilman Beal, second by Councilman Phillips to authorize the town supervisor and the professional staff to continue to engage Tri-Municipal Sewer Commission to obtain voting seats on the commission. 2 voting seats on the commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you very much, folks. This is very important. Thank you. Keeping along the same theme of water and sewer in the town of Wappinger, we are in receipt of 2 petitions from 11 properties in the Fleetwood Osborne Hill area. Mrs. Nellie Briggs was very kind enough to go around to many of her neighbors and acquire some of these signatures. But right here, we are in receipt of 11 properties who have expressed interest in tying into the Fleetwood Water District as well as the Fleetwood Sewer District. As I've expressed to Mrs. Briggs, who's in attendance here tonight, thank you for coming. The town of Wappinger currently has no plans for expansion of these services, but again, would absolutely entertain the investigation to determine the cost to provide this infrastructure for those within the surrounding area. In speaking with Mr. Liguori prior to the meeting, I believe that you also spoke with Mrs. Briggs, we feel that there needs to be an escrow provided by the property owners
Yep.
in order for town professionals to move forward with this investigative work.
Larry and I had a minute to just speak between us speaking and
Is there a new
now.
revelation?
Yeah. Look, it may not be as easy as we thought, but we'll reach out to the property owners and guide them. Okay.
Yeah. Larry, I also sent you an email about it. We
Okay.
had spoken about it before.
Okay.
So what I was looking to do tonight was, again, get town board consensus to authorize myself and again the professional staff to look into this tie-in for the residents of the greater Fleetwood area. And obviously, this is not committing us to anything. It's not committing the residents to anything. This is at least coming up with how feasible this infrastructure upgrade could be. And again, those numbers. So if there's no concerns or backlash from the town board,
Are there any mains going down Osborne?
Osborne has a water main that goes to just about where the old Osborne Inn is and then cuts through via an easement into Cretch Circle. That's where the water line
In the
is.
back there.
The sewer line ends on Fleetwood Drive before it gets to Osborne Hill.
But there is a possibility we could ask our neighbors in Fishkill to help us with the water situation also, to run the line down Osborne Hill Road and then connect the people down there Fleetwood, which was something I was looking at, Nellie,
Well, the
to
village,
try to pursue.
the village of Fishkill currently provides the water that's there now. So there is currently a water line coming down Osborne Hill Road from the village of Fishkill. That is what provides that water. Historically, Councilman Paoloni, were you on the board when the board decommissioned the Fleetwood wells? Yeah. So the Fleetwood wells, which neighbored the Fleetwood sewer plant, was in incredibly poor shape and not producing quality water, and was decommissioned. That was then a venture that was undertaken by, I believe, the Smith-Ruggiero days, as well as Mr. Paoloni, to then bring water from the village of Fishkill down Osborne Hill Road to the inn at Osborne, and then through to Cretch Circle. So that is currently where that water comes from.
Right, but we could also run a new line from Fishkill down Osborne Hill Road and connect those homes also, because they have water. And Fishkill has water because they give water to Chelsea Ridge Apartments. So that is something that we should look into also.
I think what you're getting at is expanding off that initial line.
Possibly, or doing a new line. I'm not sure what the capacity is off that line, because I know we can't lock into the line that comes through Chelsea Road that supplies the water to Chelsea Ridge, so I have no idea how big
Yeah,
that
that's-
line is.
I believe that's privately owned.
Yeah, that's a privately owned line.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I would like to
Yeah.
pursue that.
Yeah.
So there's a good amount of water coming down Osborne Hill,
Yeah,
because there's a
Yeah.
pressure relief valve that has to be in place to serve Cretch Circle. So there's water coming
It's a
down.
substantial amount of water. They did
So-
the line the right way.
We're talking sewer though, right?
No,
No,
we're- so-
water.
Oh,
no,
So
just water.
sewer is currently served by the plant that's in the neighborhood today.
okay.
The water line took care of the former well field, and that comes down Osborne Hill.
Okay.
And it goes in through the back end of that neighborhood, not through the main entrance of it.
So what the councilwoman was saying, I agree. So where the water goes, it makes a left and it goes into Cretch Circle, right?
Yes.
Somewhere near whatever it is now, the
Yeah, I
Mexican
don't know what it
restaurant.
The
or whatever.
Azteca restaurant.
Somewhere right there, it cuts off and it goes, there's a hydrant in Cretch Circle, right? There's a pressure relief valve someplace before that, right? And that is existing infrastructure that's in that, so that's pre-existing infrastructure, I should say, that was there from the legacy system, right?
Yes.
But I do think it is worth exploring continuing south,
Yes.
correction, north on Osborne Hill Road.
North on Osborne, yes.
You know, right up to Ketchum Town, that's where Doyle's at, right? So, I mean, I'm on Tuscany, and there's people talking about water, availability, right? So if you have good pressure coming out of there, it's worth exploring. It's worth-
Exactly.
You know, we need to have answers for folks when they ask these
Exactly.
questions. You know, of course, the one reservation I would have is, you know, when you're using another municipality's water system, obviously you're at the mercy of their rates. So you always have to make sure that that's something that you keep
Of
an
course.
eye on, right?
Yep.
And if you're going to, I don't know if it's is it a district right now?
It is a district, correct.
All right, so basically, if you're expanding the boundaries of the district to include Osborne Hill Road, Osborne and Ketchum Town, and, you know, that
Perhaps the
vicinity
mobile
right there.
home park, the deli.
Yeah, I think, you know, ET Deli or whatever it's called now.
Well, that whole area where there's residents
yeah,
need to
so
be taken care of.
The more
if they want
parcels,
to.
the better, because
Right.
that reduces the overall cost, right?
Yes.
I think it's
Exactly.
worth exploring.
I do too.
So I'm just going to say a few things. One is, I didn't realize it was a water and sewer petition.
Yes.
So you were talking about water, and I was thinking, wasn't it just sewer?
No,
But it's
no,
not.
two
So,
petitions.
Thank you. Number one.
It's okay.
I didn't realize that either, so on
It's okay.
so on the sewer side, how does that play out?
So the sewer side, it would obviously, again, have to be engineered, but the idea would be to come in off of the end of the main at Fleetwood Drive, go under Osborne Hill Road, and obviously tie in the residents that are requesting that service.
Is that its
Look
own
into it
district?
and let
Yes,
us
it's also
know,
a separate,
please.
so Fleetwood is its own separate sewer district and its own separate water district.
Okay.
Also, again, while we're having these conversations, especially during last week's meeting, where we talked about capacity, things like that, again, as the councilman noted, and as I noted, this is Village of Fishkill water, so it's not Town of Wappinger water. So they have their own aquifers and their own supply that would provide access to this area. Sewer, we are working on doing some capital infrastructure upgrades to the Fleetwood sewer plant, which is not in as bad of shape in comparison to Midpoint and Wildwood. So you won't hear much about Fleetwood, because the other two have significant
Thank
issues.
you.
But Fleetwood would be able to handle this.
Okay,
Are
so
there any
then,
funds for infrastructure these
yeah,
days?
so Chris, you were just hitting on what Larry and I were just whispering to each other.
I only, because
This is the meeting within the meeting.
3 years ago, we put in a line from the Garmo Hills to the firehouse. If it's a quarter mile, maybe. They had the road dug up, and we put a water line in the trench that they already had, and it cost us $400,000.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked if there's
Yeah,
any
so,
funding.
So I think you really kind of hit the nail on the head, which is that, first of all, I should give you guys, advice after I've had a few minutes to kind of study exactly what has to go on. But generally, when you have applications for connections, it's the landowners that fund
They're
an
the
escrow for, well, they hire an engineer, cause a design to be prepared, submit a petition together with a map and a plan and a report. And then, and with an escrow for our own engineer to review it. It doesn't start with our own engineer, it starts with the petitioner.
Yes.
So we need to have some discussions about making sure that the community is in fact desirous of this and whether they could coalesce and make that happen. I wasn't sure, at the beginning, as far as, is it even possible, whether it was just a few hours of Larry's time or not. But talking to Larry, just between me talking to our constituent and then talking to Larry, it's not a simple task. It's going to
Oh,
be
no,
a
it's
task
not.
that's going to require, this community to go study this. The alternative is unless it emanates from the town board, you create the district and then bill everybody. That's another, there's two ways to skin the cat. There's one that comes from the community and there's one that comes from the town board.
And to that note, and to Councilman Phillips's note, if we were to do it, you're talking about prevailing wage, which is substantially more. But then if it's coming from the resident, you're talking about, again, not paying prevailing wage. You're talking about an
Yeah,
everyday
there's some
private
serious
rate,
benefits
which is a serious benefit. You're going
Yeah.
to talk about a buy-in to enter into the district. But again, you're not talking about the same significant cost. And this is, again, incumbent on the resident
Right.
to do that. And again, it would be more affordable that way.
I agree. Without, even seeing the numbers, I think
It's going to be substantially.
our experience,
Yeah.
More
collective
affordable.
experiences is that way. I mean, look, we're I can speak for myself. We're always happy to guide the residents of the community to, who've never done this before and, who's done this before, right? Very few of your constituents. So we could certainly help guide them, but it's
Thank you.
gonna take that.
I look forward to talking to you.
Yeah,
Both,
yeah.
actually.
Thank you. Thank you,
And
gentlemen.
Nellie
You're
will
welcome.
keep you involved also.
So with that, I'd like to make a motion to authorize myself and a professional team to engage with the residents outlined here in this petition to move forward with any escrows, with any planning, design, so on and so forth, for expansion to the Fleetwood Water District, as well as the Fleetwood Sewer District.
I would like to be involved in all those meetings, and there are more people that are more interested in
Absolutely.
us, though. So
Would you
please
like
make-
to
make sure you copy me on any meetings.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's why we brought it to the board.
I appreciate it.
Yep. And would you like to second my motion?
I'll second it.
Moved by Supervisor Cavazzini, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much, folks. We will be in touch. Now, thank you. Okay. Moving on to our consent resolutions. Resolution 2025-47, resolution authorizing naming of private road for the Myers Run subdivision. Resolution
Excuse me.
2025-48, resolution appointing Labor and Employment Council to the town of Wappinger. Resolution 2025-49, resolution setting restoration bond for CarMax. Resolution 2025-51, resolution authorizing the submission of the 2025 Community Development Block Grant application for continued improvements to the Carnwath Farms Reese Cultural Center restrooms. Resolution 2025-58, resolution promoting seasonal laborer to full-time maintenance worker in the Buildings and Grounds Department. Resolution 2025-56, correspondence log. Do I have a motion?
Move.
Moved by Councilman Phillips.
Second.
Second by Councilman Beal. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Motion passes.
I just have one question, maybe you can get this information for us. So in the correspondence log, it's really good to see that we made a lot more money in sales tax and mortgage tax than we thought.
Yes.
They're just not matching to what we've been given so far in the breakdown. If you could find out where the sales tax and mortgage tax is, it's just not in, it doesn't match up.
Well, again, the books have not been closed out for 2024. We are short a comptroller. The county is typically a few months behind when it comes to providing us that sales tax revenue. It's very nice that they provided us this memo. It's different when they actually send the money. So yes, everything will
Okay.
balance out.
Very good.
Thank you, Councilman. On to the non-consent, oh, yes.
And just with respect to sales tax, you know, we talked about this. You know, we budget conservatively, but we anticipated sales tax revenue to come in substantial, which it did. And I'm glad that we have those
And we're
numbers.
short a quarter too, so
Yes.
that's only,
Well,
Right.
That's what I'm getting at, yeah.
Yeah.
We're short a quarter, and
We're still
mortgage
over.
tax has been faring out very well. We continue to be around the top four in the county. So, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Non-consent resolutions. Resolution 2025-30, resolution appointing certified public accountants to provide various accounting services and to audit the accounts and reports of the town supervisor, town clerk, and town justices. I'd like to make a motion to table.
Second.
Second by Councilman Phillips for discussion. I have scheduled Shannon, who is our principal at the firm, for 6:30, March 10th, which is the day of our next town board meeting. And that would be available to any board members that wish to meet with Shannon.
Thank you.
We have a motion and second to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you very much. Resolution 2025-39, resolution authorizing purchase of universal water access launching dock. Do I have a motion for discussion?
move.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Phillips, second by Councilwoman Bettina. As the town clerk and I have spoken about publicly at these meetings, Councilman Phillips has engaged as well with his input. We are looking to add to the water trails and water networks that we have in this town. This resolution here would go for the Lower Wappinger Creek launch. Right now, we're looking at adding it to the boat ramp down at the boathouse. The subsequent resolution would then replace the gangway, the gangplank, right? Gangplank, and all of the docks at the Chelsea boat launch on the Hudson River, which would then satisfy what we are doing with the boat ramp replacement project. Would also actually create a water trail. So you would be able to go from the lower Wappinger Creek down the Hudson River into Chelsea and create 2 points that are actually already along the Hudson River Water Trail from the New York State Greenway. So Mr. Paoloni has done an extensive amount of research in providing these quotes and these estimates, and we'd like to move forward with both resolutions.
Make that motion.
Second.
Moved by Phillips, second by Councilwoman Bettina. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you very much. Resolution 2025-46, resolution authorizing the purchase and replacing of launching system for the Chelsea boat ramp.
Move.
Moved by Councilwoman Bettina,
Second.
second by Councilman Phillips. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Thank you very much. Thank you, folks. This will be a great recreational opportunity for the residents. Thank you. Resolution 2025-50, Town of Wappinger Policy for Improvements to Municipal Property. I'd like to make a motion to table.
I'll second it.
Second by Councilman Phillips. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Thank you very much. Resolution's tabled. Resolution 2025-57, resolution amending Resolution 2024-20, good,
Move.
225. Moved by Councilman Phillips. We have a motion.
So this is correcting a previous resolution that was inaccurate?
Correct.
So,
I can speak to that.
yes, would you like to?
So we had a draft resolution circulated in December, which I reworded in order to make it a little bit more clear. And in the process, I think that prior resolution had the reference to 4 charges.
Yes.
And the revised resolution made a reference to each of the charges. And so the nuance here is that there's some pretty lengthy case law on how FOIL applies to a former employee or current employee's disciplinary record.
And how does it apply?
So here's how it applies. If an employee is charged with, let's say misconduct, for example, and the charge is determined to be unproven, then it is protected under the personal privacy laws that we all benefit from the state of New York. If the charge is proved, then it is not subject to withholding it's not a personal privacy violation, it's available to the public. And so recently we've had this experience where one of our former employees' disciplinary records have been foiled. So I've, gone through, talked to the Committee on Open Government, gone through case law and all the opinions that apply. Anything that in that particular employee's records that were an unproven charge, we've redacted in its entirety, but we've had to provide the ones that were proven. So in this case, I'd like to honor, what the requirements are. But our resolution from 2016 says that all the charges were proven, which in fact that wasn't the case. So in effect, what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, there were a number of charges, 4 of which were proven.
Yes, and that was the initial resolution that was drafted.
Yeah, I went back.
Yes.
Yeah, and I went back.
The first resolution was correct,
Right.
and then it was amended by a council member.
No.
It was directed to be amended by a council member.
So anyway, in the revision, it was stated that 5 charges were proven when it was only 4.
Correct.
So anyway, I'd like to maintain this individual's right to personal privacy as to that one unproven charge, and that requires us to correct the resolution so that the I's dot and the T's cross, and that's why I'm asking the board to amend that prior resolution.
Have this individual's right to privacy been violated as of right now?
No, and there's a provision in FOIL which is really interesting. So FOIL is Section 87, Chapter 87 of the Public Officers Law. And what that says is that in subsection 6, that any former employee or former this isn't, you guys are public employees, right? You're actually public officials, but you're also public employees. But so all all the members or all the employees of town government are public employees. So the right that's provided to them is to just be notified of the information that's been released. So everything that's been released so far has been copied and sent to the former employees so that they're not blindsided by the fact that, this information is out there.
Have FOIL requests been satisfied with respect to this employee?
So right now, there's a request for a copy of the transcript of the hearing that occurred, and we have not provided the transcript.
Thank
So there's a debate over how much of that has to be, whether it does have to be, provided, but it's, 400 some odd pages, and there's voluminous amounts of redaction that are going to have to happen. And just to give you an idea of what the redaction looks like, every single person who contributes to an employment hearing has a right to privacy. And so the case law and the opinions say that you have to redact their names. But there's other identifying factors in situations. Let's say something occurs where, we're all working at a park together. Well, you can kind of piece together who those people were by virtue of, where that was. So there's a little bit more context that has to be, revised. But, so anyway, so the first release of information is redacted appropriately. There's a request for the transcript. That has not been provided. There could be an appeal associated therewith, and I actually don't have the transcript yet, so once I have it, I'll have to take a look at it and see what's involved.
Who is the arbiter on what gets redacted?
Right now, the law says that the lowest paid employee of the town applicable to the holding of those records. But,
Don't you love New York State law?
Oh, my God.
I mean, seriously.
So let me just say this.
But hang on, because right now, the
You just
lowest
made
paid.
that up, didn't you?
No, I did not. I don't have time to make this stuff up. I wish I had a broad enough imagination.
Well, it's the same law that says that you guys have to feed deer. Yeah.
So look, can it be done by a non-attorney? Sure. But my preference would be, look, I'm here to protect the town as much as I am, make sure that all of the laws apply. And what I don't want to have happen, and I think this is a real serious concern for anybody that's involved in town government, is you don't want to have a chilling effect on people whistleblowing and, alerting their superiors that things are going wrong. And the risk is that, well, now my name is going to be everywhere, and I don't want to do it, and it's going to perpetuate a bad situation. So we have to be really careful about, making sure that, we do everything correctly. But we're getting there. As soon as I get the transcript, I'll take a look at it and see what has to happen, and then we'll proceed accordingly. But as of right now, I with the exception of the delivering the transcript, everything else that's been requested has been delivered.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, we need to be very careful with this.
Yes.
Because there's already details of this hearing that are out there. And
Sure.
how it's being disseminated and transmitted to people, I don't know.
Exactly.
But I will say that it's not going to be good for the town of Wappinger if things are released that shouldn't be released.
Yeah.
And sounds like that's happened.
Exactly. And
Well,
that's why we
not
have
that it-
expressed amongst everyone who's been involved that you need to, have confidentiality.
Yeah, well, there hasn't been an inappropriate release. It's, I'm right down to the letter of the law as far as, what has to be released. But that's what the law says. I think what's, probably out there is that this sense of personal privacy that's a lot greater than what actually exists. And that's probably more accurate.
Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. We have a motion and a second. Oh, we don't have a second? Okay.
I'll second it.
Second by Councilman Beal. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Thank you very much. See, that's why I repeat it back. That's good. Thank you. Okay, I have no further business come before the town board. I have no business for executive session.
I have two personnel issues we should discuss real quick.
Okay.
Okay.
Before we do that, I will say that I certainly don't miss these days. For those that are wondering what I'm doing, is we don't have a controller right now, so we need 3 signatures on every voucher. And there was a time where we used to do this before we had a controller, and it's not fun. But it does, I think everybody should do this at some point,
Yeah.
because there's certainly, I did pull the Tri-Muni payment, and I didn't sign it.
Yeah.
But I guess we're going to have to.
You'll also see there, there's a letter attached to that voucher. Since 1991, the town of Wappinger was told by the Tri-Municipal Sewer Commission that we have to pay in advance for our quarterly bills. And the way that the commission interpreted the initial 91 contract was the initial payment had been made in advance, essentially a buy-in. Well, the commission continued that until 2024. So when I noticed this, that, we're prepaying, we got credits, that they're attributed to our account, we have, debts that then we need to pay, it made no sense. I wrote a very strongly worded letter, copied the town board, to the commission, and they honored our request or demand to pay upon receipt of a bill. And you'll notice there that's an accurate bill. So that's why that's there.
And then, thank you. And let me just say, obviously, I was not here until late last meeting due to the tragic situation that occurred in my ward, actually across the street from where I lived for 12 years on Marlville Road, where we lost 2 residents of this town in a horrible, unspeakable situation. Having been there from the beginning through the conclusion of that, I just want to thank, on the record, in addition to the multiple fire departments that responded to that, the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office, who are the lead law enforcement agency on that incident, or on that case, I should say, the Dutchess County District Attorney's Office, the Dutchess County Medical Examiner's Office, the ATF was on scene for evidence collection purposes, and that scene was maintained for a period of 4 days due to the extenuating circumstances and the critical evidence collection that needed to occur. I want to thank the town supervisor for being there the night of the incident to assist with some of the needs that we had on that scene to help maintain the integrity of the scene. That property is fenced in at this time, mainly for the purposes of maintaining the existence of the structure for the discovery laws that exist now, and for other purposes. That's one of those situations that nobody wants to respond to, nobody wants to be part of. Our volunteers sacrificed a period of 4 days to help maintain the custody of that scene and to assist the investigators with the very methodical scene examination and evidence collection. The Dutchess County Fire Investigation Division, which I oversee at the county level, was on scene for multiple days. Many folks don't realize that those fire investigators are volunteers. They're unpaid, and many of them took 2-3 days off from work in the first week to process that scene, and in the second week, investigators had to take time off from work again to answer subpoenas and give testimony before the grand jury. So there's a lot of moving parts that go into these types of incidents, and at the end of the day, we lost 2 good, solid citizens of this town. I lived at 65 Marlville, which is the Valentine House, for 12 years, and they were my neighbors. And tragically, we lost them. Justice will be served in this case. It currently is moving swiftly because of the work of the investigators, but that doesn't replace the 2 residents who we lost. So let's keep that family in our thoughts. Obviously, the Haight family has many connections to this town. Paul was the son of Mal Haight, who sat in this chair for many years as a council member.
That's it.
And, having the Haight family on the scene of that incident while it was occurring and unfolding was just as painful as the outcome. But I do believe that everyone involved with that scene treated those individuals with the utmost dignity. So my thanks to also Mike Sheehan, Town Highway Superintendent, and Code Enforcement, Dan Franks, Sue Deo. There were a lot of things that needed to be done at the right time to ensure that the integrity of that investigation was maintained. And I'm proud of this town for coming together and doing what had to be done in that case. So just wanted to make sure that I took a moment to talk about this, since it was a very significant incident right here in the heart of our town.
Let us all keep them in our prayers, everybody that was affected by this tragedy.
Thank you. Councilman Phillips, you asked for a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Second by Councilman Bettina. All in favor? Aye. We will be returning in public portion.